here's a tweet that comes from a guy named Amir King. He's been kind of giving updates on this situation. I think him and Chud are friends. But here's what he said, and this was a couple of hours ago. Quote, Chud update. Here are some fun facts that you'll see developing. The entire exchange was live streamed on Pump Fun. That's the streaming service I was telling you guys about before. The stream shut down at the first gunshot due to an automated AI response system. The stream is being subpoenaed. The facts according to over 100 witnesses watching the live stream. Chud told the guy, quote, I hope your day gets better. God bless, end quote. Then it goes, Chud had already walked away, was about 70 to 100 yards away. The man went out of his way to run up on Chud while his back was turned. He confronted Chud. He punched Chud in the face. Chud didn't instigate anything. Some of you are about to look absolutely stupid. Now, let's assume, let's take his bias here because obviously he's his friend. But let's assume that this fact pattern is correct and this is what actually went down. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, that looks a lot better than some of the alternative fact patterns for sure. So let me give people the framework that I apply when I break down any use of force case or any case I'm working on. And I get paid a lot of money to do this. And you'll be surprised to know, maybe, that there's only 5 things you need for self-defense. It's very simple. It's like a child's jigsaw puzzle with 5 giant pieces. It's not, the law's not complicated. And those 5 pieces are innocence, imminence, proportionality, avoidance, and reasonableness. That means innocence, you can't have been the initial aggressor or the person who provoked the fight. If you do that, you lose innocence, you lose self-defense. And by the way, all these elements are required. If any one of them is missing, you don't have self-defense. Whatever you did, it was not lawful self-defense. So another way to think of these is each of these elements I'm talking about is a target of attack for the prosecutor. So a prosecutor who knows what he's doing, he gets that investigative report from the detectives and he's thinking to himself, all right, I have to be able to disprove one of these beyond a reasonable doubt, and then I win. And the reason he wins is, if you think about it, when you claim self-defense, like Chud the Builder is going to be claiming, you're not saying it wasn't me. You're not saying I have an alibi. I wasn't there. You're saying the opposite of that. You're saying it was me. I shot that guy, but I did it in self-defense. Well, the prosecutor knows if he can defeat one of those required 5 elements and self-defense goes away, the only thing that's left of I shot that guy, but it was self-defense is I shot that guy. It's just a confession. So the prosecutor's looking at these 5 elements to see which one looks vulnerable to being disproven beyond a reasonable doubt. If you were the initial aggressor or the provoker, you lose innocence, you lose self-defense. Prosecutor knows that. The next is imminence. You have to be defending yourself against a threat that's either actually occurring in the moment or immediately about to occur. The fist is pulled back, the guy's reaching for a weapon. It can't be something that happened in the past. It can't be something that might happen in the future. Proportionality, and this could be a problem for Chud, is you can only use deadly defensive force if you're facing a deadly force threat. If you're only facing a non-deadly force threat, you can't use a gun to defend yourself against a non-deadly force threat. And usually a punch is going to be considered a non-deadly force threat. So that could be an issue here. Avoidance is the 4th element. That has to do with whether or not you have a legal duty to retreat before you can defend yourself. Tennessee, like most states, is a stand your ground state. So in otherwise lawful self-defense, you don't have a legal duty to retreat. But what if the self-defense is not otherwise lawful? What if it has some other defect? Then even in Tennessee, which was one of the first stand your ground states, you can reacquire a legal duty to retreat. And then finally, reasonableness. And this is a broad target of attack because it just asks generally, would a reasonable and prudent person do what you did? And let's face it, anyone who's a social media provocateur is doing a lot of stuff that's kind of outside the Overton window and does not look reasonable to a normie jury. I mean, just imagine a typical juror in this, little town in Tennessee.
Yep.
Most white people have been socially conditioned their whole lives to viscerally recoil if they were to see a white guy call a black guy the N-word to his face.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They don't consider that normal. They don't consider that reasonable. So that could be an issue. Now, of course, we don't know that happened here, but so what the prosecutor is looking for is, if Chud provoked this fight, again, we don't know if that happened, but if it provoked the fight, that complicates Chud's claim of self-defense. That's a target for attack. If Chud went to the gun when a gun deadly defensive force was disproportionate, that's the element of proportionality, vulnerable to attack. And if Chud engaged in behavior that the prosecutor believes a typical juror in his district would find unreasonable, that's a target for attack for the prosecutor. So it depends on how the facts work out. If Chud provoked the confrontation, if Chud went to the gun when he shouldn't have, if Chud acted unreasonably, well, there's only 5 elements of self-defense, and now 3 of them are viable attacks for the prosecutor. Of course, if Chud didn't do any of that, if the facts we just heard recounted by Amiri were, he was basically innocuous, minding his own business, got attacked from behind, didn't provoke anybody, had reason to believe he was being threatened with a deadly force attack, which doesn't require death, but either death or serious bodily injury. And he had reason to believe this, that it wasn't speculative, it wasn't bare fear. Well, then he's got a very solid claim of self-defense, but we can't really know until we see evidence.